We are live on a Friday. It's the 14th of February. Happy Valentine's Day to those of you who celebrate, whether you're single, taken, somewhere in between, who knows. We're looking forward to doing a little matchmaker segment coming up later on when it pertains to Ravens free agency and some of the moves and priorities that are on Eric DeCosta's docket in the coming months, of course, as the new league year looms and offseason, of course, officially gets going this week. So with that, welcome inside the vault. We appreciate you guys for being here for a Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. I'm Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside Sarah Ellison. Hopefully we're looking festive enough for your liking today. Deion Sanders called out Stephen A. Smith for his recent Lamar Jackson take. We've got some refreshing Kyle Hamilton content. Stop us if you've heard that before, which pairs nicely with the other Kyle Van Noy, who had also some interesting thoughts on the facility last week. It's the same segment that we shared with you earlier this week, where he made some headlines about how he answered a holdout question, being that he's coming off a career year of 12 and a half sacks. So we'll kind of pair all that together. Again, have some fun matchmaking content on the back end of this live stream. And happy Valentine's Day to you and yours, partner. What's going on?
Same to you. The chat's already calling you Bobby Bachelor with the blazer, the jacket on, kind of maroon. Last time I think did you wear that at the Super Bowl, or was it a maroon undershirt is what you had underneath?
I had the maroon undershirt, but This may have actually, you might be getting your memory jogged, because I think in Vegas I was wearing this.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, love is in the air. Love is in the air. So, it's all love. And it's all love with Deion Sanders and Lamar Jackson, because for the second time, I've got a clip here where Deion isn't buying this stuff that Lamar wasn't the MVP. And he also doesn't like Stephen A. Smith's reaction to him not winning the MVP. So should we just get into it right now?
Let's do it.
All right. This is the two of them. They're guests on the nightcap. This is from the Super Bowl. This is from New Orleans before the game, but after NFL honors. And Stephen A. Smith had a certain reaction to Lamar not winning. And just pay attention to what Deion does as he's talking.
Josh Allen won the MVP. Yep. Lamar Jackson was first-team All-Pro quarterback. What are your thoughts?
I'm kind of glad Lamar didn't win it.
That's the setup.
You got 2 league MVPs. Every other individual in NFL history who's had 2 league MVPs. If he had won 3, then the heat on him next year would have intensified even more. And we'd highlight his failures more instead of appreciating his greatness more.
We can't look down the street and condemn a man about what may happen tomorrow and not applaud what he's done today. That man deserves his flowers right now. He was the most valuable quarterback in the NFL to his team, to our league, to his offense.
We walked into this season and we looked at Baltimore and the acquisition of Derrick Henry, and we said they're monsters. We saw Josh Allen. He lost Stephon Diggs. He lost Gabe Davis. He had a rookie wide out in Keon Coleman. He didn't get Amari Cooper until the middle of the season, and he was balling out. Shannon and I, along with everybody else, was debating who was the MVP. We were leaning towards Lamar Jackson, but it wasn't like we had summarily dismissed Josh Allen because he had played on an elite level and he didn't have as much to work with.
All right, Bobby, the whole part of who had more to work with and all of that, we addressed that with Emmanuel Acho. It's just dumb. They just keep talking about Stephon Diggs, but they don't talk about the Ravens losing their interceptions leader, their sack leader, 3 defensive coordinators, or 3 guys that went on to become either defensive coordinators or head coaches. So we're not going to get into that again, but it's that beginning part where they're even asking the question up here. You can see it. Is it good Lamar didn't win MVP? And I love this part. Stephen A. Smith says, I'm glad Lamar didn't win it. And Deion interjects and says, that's a setup. That's a setup. And then Stephen Smith goes on to say, well, if he had won 3, then the heat on him next year would have intensified even more, and we'd highlight his failures more instead of appreciating his greatness more. Your thoughts?
Well, the reason why I'm not buying into that is because there was no indication this entire past season, aside from the comments that were completely overblown leading into wild card weekend that Lamar was antsy, that he wasn't able to handle a season in which he was essentially trying to go back-to-back with MVP, right? There was no indication that that was too much for him. He played his heart out. And clearly, like the Deions, like the DeMeco Ryans, like voters like Mike Florio, like the GOAT in Tom Brady, we thought that there was a universal belief leading into NFL honors that both past, present, and non-players felt like Lamar was MVP. And so the reason why I can't get behind where Stephen A is going with this in terms of the heat is that Lamar almost in his sleep went back to back and again showed no signs that the moment was too big for him, that the pressure was mounting. And we'll never know how much pressure he felt going into that divisional round game against Buffalo. But what we do know is what our eyes told us. And when the game was on the line, he went 90 to the house without his top two wide receivers. Those are the facts. And so should he have went back to back, which we all kind of believe in this show, within this community and outside of this community, as we've heard from other past guests and distinguished voters and whatnot, that he should have. And if he had, I have no reason to believe, Sarah, that he wouldn't have been able to back it up next year, chasing after what he's been chasing, which is that coveted trophy.
This line right here, I'm kind of glad Lamar didn't win it. I've heard Ravens fans say the same thing. They said it more early in the season. People would get after me for saying, Sarah, I don't care about the MVP. I don't care about it. I don't care about it. And they say that I'm kind of glad Lamar didn't win it for exactly what Stephen A. Smith just said, because people would have highlighted, they would have used it against him. Bobby, this sentence, I'm kind of glad Lamar didn't win it, I despise it because it's a loser mentality. It is loser mentality that you don't want to win because you are afraid that people will use that against you. No. Bobby, the people I know that have had sustained success, not one and done success, sustained success over time, they are not afraid of success. And these little mental gymnastics games that we play where we say, well, if he doesn't win it, that'll just make him more fired up and he'll try to prove it next year. Or I hated this line. I heard it so much last year. I'd rather win the Super Bowl than win an MVP. Yeah, no fake. So does Lamar. Of course, everybody wants the Super Bowl, but they're not mutually exclusive. Nobody guarantees that if you don't win the MVP, you go on and win the Super Bowl. Get out of here with this loser mentality that you don't want to win something so that expectations aren't there for you in the future. Now, Lamar's never said that. Lamar talks about his priorities. Yes, he wants a Super Bowl. He doesn't want an individual award. I've got no problem with that. That is exactly what the mentality should be. But when somebody played at a level that was historic and you're glad you didn't win it because you're afraid of people using it against you, that's a loser. Deion is a winner. He's somebody that has sustained success over time. And he is unafraid of expectations. And he says, we can't look down the street and condemn a man about what may happen tomorrow. Yes, Lamar and the Ravens have had many chances, but there are more to come. And you cannot condemn what has not happened in the future, as he says. You cannot condemn him about what may happen tomorrow and not applaud what he's done today. So forget this, that you're glad he didn't win it. He says the man deserves his flowers right now. He has the MVP. He was the MVP QB in the NFL, to the Ravens, to this league, and to his offense. 1,000% appreciate every single thing that's good and not fear the future is how it should go. And that's the mentality that you have to have. Win everything. Quit playing these mental games that if you lose one, you're going to get another. Or that, okay, now we don't have to hear people on TV. Stephen A. Smith with 2 MVPs or 3 MVPs, he was going to hold it against him anyway. So who cares? Who cares? Go out and win everything that you can.
We all know that Deion is a wordsmith. He has such a way with words. And I love this quote that you just read. We can't look down the street and condemn a man about what may happen tomorrow and not applaud what he's done today. My memory was just jogged, Sarah. And I went back, and I'm going to play it right now, to that late April evening on opening night of the draft when Lamar slipped and fell all the way down to 32. And then, of course, that classic famous interview with Deion when he was working for NFL Network as a broadcaster. Those words that he used in this segment, they seemed so familiar. And I want to make sure my memory is being jogged accurately. So let's just go back for 50 seconds, if you don't mind, and listen to this clip.
You got it?
Is it not coming through the screen for you?
I don't hear anything.
Oh, shoot. Well, never mind then. I'm not going to play it because we're going to get copyright. But it was something along the lines of like, you're not worried about what you did yesterday, you're here today. Or it was something along those lines. And let me just make sure I get this. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Let's see.
While you're looking it up, Lewis in the chat commented that I didn't even have to yell. That was my working on myself, where I was passionate without screaming. How'd I do?
All right, I got the clip.
Okay.
Yesterday does not matter. You look forward to today. Whatever. It didn't end up hitting the way that I thought it might. But I was thinking back to that interview with Deion, and man, Lamar's got such a baby face back then in 2018. But you asked me a question, and I was listening to the clip simultaneously. So sorry. Go ahead.
I didn't know you were listening to it. No, but I know what you're talking about, because Deion had Lamar up at the draft podium. I don't even need to re-listen to it again because it's seared into my brain, where he says, how do you feel sitting down here until 32? And he says, doesn't matter. I'm a Raven now. And Deion says to him, that's right. You're a Raven now. Yesterday is in the past. Tomorrow is what is all you can control. And that's exactly the same sentiment he's putting here. Quit stealing from this man or anybody else, or from yourself, quite frankly, opportunities that you have to be great because you're worried about what happened in the past or what people said or anything like that. It's all irrelevant. And I love Deion. He's like, that's a setup. That's a setup. And what's the setup? It's to shame you or to make you fear great expectations put upon you. It's a setup. It's a setup. I'm glad Lamar didn't win. That's right. It's a setup. Forget that crap. Win as much as you can and enjoy it as it goes on and keep playing for tomorrow.
You know, I can't help myself now. I got to play the clip for everybody.
Here we go.
I just got to do it, you know, and stand by here because we're going to have to do a slight little change on the back end. But here it is.
I see it in your eyes. I can see you a little bit upset, a little deterred. But guess what?
I'm here.
It's here. You're here.
I'm a Raven. It's on. All year. Every year. Yes, sir.
What could you have done differently that you could have gotten out of that room quicker and got drafted earlier in your career?
Nothing. I'm happy to be a Raven. It don't even matter.
Yesterday does not matter. You're looking forward to today.
I'm looking forward to being a Raven.
What are they getting?
Everything out of me. They're going to get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that. Yeah. Believe that.
Ozzie, man, I love you, man. Ozzie, you know I love you.
Oh, goodness. The middle part of that. Yesterday does not matter. You're looking forward to today. And that was what jogged my memory. So
yeah,
anyway.
And he's saying the same thing to Stephen A. Smith.
Precisely.
Sure. Yeah.
Precisely.
We've got some super chats. Should we get to them?
We do. We should, and we do. Sod Blitz 34. I'd rather see us trade picks for a proven player. I'm not confident in EDC's ability to draft at all. We are constantly out-drafted by Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Kansas City. Another one from Sod Blitz. By the way, I think, well, first of all, those three are, especially Kansas City and Philadelphia, elite franchises that everybody's chasing. But I think Eric DeCosta's track record, while he's swung and missed a little bit like every GM does, I think you got to put him up there among the league's best when it comes to cultivating, scouting, and ultimately drafting. I mean, think about how many mid-round picks this dude's hit on.
The Ravens have the most players that they've drafted in the NFL. More than the other teams that were just named. So I don't think Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh drafts wide receivers better than the Ravens. But I'm not giving them a a complete saying, yeah, they're just better than the Ravens overall. That's not true. The AFC North has plucked some of the Ravens draft picks that they couldn't sign. Tomlin came over and got Patrick Queen. He knew he wanted him. He didn't draft him. They're out looking for a quarterback. They haven't had a quarterback since Ben Roethlisberger.
Since he got Geno, Miami got Deshaun Elliott. Patriots traded for, or I can't remember if it was a trade or if he just left in free agency, Judon. Now he's in Atlanta, still a heck of a mid-round pick that the Ravens built up. And, whether or not they should have paid him, obviously, is a conversation for another time. But if there's an area that I don't feel like is one that deserves harsh critique, it's the way that this front office drafts. You can critique them about the way they spend their money, which we have over the years, particularly at that position you just referenced, wide receiver. But man, grooming and ultimately identifying and then ultimately making sure that homegrown talent stays homegrown as much as they possibly can. That's a strength of theirs. And two guys that come to mind who I'm sure they have plans of hopefully making sure that at least one of these two, if not both, finish their careers as Ravens, Kyle Hamilton and Tyler Linderbaum, who are both expected to get nice deals here in the coming months. Another one from Saad, though.
Last year I wanted to take Xavier Worthy or Cooper DeJean in the first, and I was hoping we got Wilson with the second. Wiggins is solid, but all of them were stars and made an immediate impact versus Baltimore.
He may have PTSD from that Peyton Wilson interception of Justice Hill, if that's who he's referencing there. That incredible play. Remember when he wrestled it out of Justice's hands?
Yeah.
In the first, I think that was the first time they played Pittsburgh. That was absolutely insane. Asmodeus checking in. Might be spending some time with him tomorrow in DC at a certain event. Richard says Lamar on the regular season is ice cold. MVP has no bearing on the playoffs, which is where game psychology needs to change across the team, including the coaching staff. And also has a response here to Saad Blitz.
I strongly disagree, Asmodeus says. EDC is great. I blame Harbs.
Draydog 679. Let your past be the stepping stone to dictating a sound and committed future. Nothing from the past can break you. Take your lessons and move forward. Maybe
well said.
Playing off of Deion's words there. Good stuff, Dre. Happy Valentine's Day, brother. And that brings us to Mr. Kyle Hamilton, who is wise beyond his years.
Yeah, so one of the super chats there talked about having a mentality in the playoffs. Well, when Kyle Hamilton was on the Mina Kimes show, I mentioned this in passing at the end of yesterday's show, Bobby, but I really wanted people to hear it, and I wanted to chat about it more. I think it's important. Mina Kimes asked Kyle about what the Ravens need and what's happening in the postseason. Kyle Hamilton, in my view, is completely correct and nailed the answer.
That you think that your team can get better at next year to maybe get further?
Yeah, I think one thing I've talked to a couple of people about is just during the regular season, it seems like every year I've been here, it seems like we get in a groove, and there's like a 6-week stretch where we're just blowing people out. And we kind of, I think, sometimes struggle with playing from behind sometimes because like we don't do it a lot. So, in the playoffs, on the road, hostile environment, playing from behind was just like unusual territory. So we got to lock in that much more. Obviously don't plan on playing from behind in the future, but if it does happen, we got to be able to respond correctly and then just execute. I've had so many people ask me like, what are the Ravens missing? I'm like, literally nothing. Like we have everything if we want to win a championship. It's just we haven't been playing well when we got to the point that we need to win, and there's no excuses for that. It's just offense, defense, special teams. We got to do better, and specifically on this Bills game, obviously we had a couple turnovers. Our defense didn't start well. Offense came out, scored first drive, and then we gave up a touchdown right back. And we don't want it to fall on our offense side to go down and score. We wanted to be on the defense to get that stop and win the game for us. So both sides of the ball, obviously going to be a tough offseason to kind of live with that. But, we got another year and hopefully right that wrong.
Oops. I think we're both trying to hit
That's
the
me.
thing.
That would be me and you.
He said, I've had so many people ask me what the Ravens are missing. I'm like, literally nothing. We have everything you want to win a championship. It's just we haven't been playing well when we got to the point that we need to win. There's no excuses for that. It's just offense, defense, special teams. We have to do better. Your reaction?
Well, I think that Kyle is obviously has a pulse and has quickly emerged as somebody that is universally respected within that locker room. Clearly, I'm not sure outside of Lamar, Sarah, that any other player has more value than he does on this team. I think I can actually confidently tell you that outside of Lamar, I don't think anybody is more valuable. And I think we saw that, certainly. I think the Ravens saw that, which is why they made a change. And that change paid big dividends for them after week 10. And Kyle went back to his traditional safety role. And as a result, you just saw a trickle-down effect in all three levels of the defense. But I think, first of all, from a fan base standpoint, that's got to make you feel pretty good going into the offseason that you have everything you need. But maybe it can give you pause, kind of like maybe Richard was getting at with one of his super chats a couple minutes ago, talking about sort of the psychology part of it, or what happens in these big moments, which we're going to get to in just a second, because the guys on the facility, particularly James Jones, pressed Kyle Van Noy about this exact topic. And I don't know if there's an exact answer to it. You know, it brings you back to the AFC Championship game last year. Why was the bully out-bullied by Travis Kelce and the Chiefs from a psychological warfare standpoint? How come they weren't as disciplined in a do-or-die moment that night? I don't know. And why did player execution become secondary last month in the divisional round? I don't know how to answer those questions, but as long as they have everything they need, which they're confident, clearly their star all-pro is confident in, that makes me confident as well. You'd like to think that it's only a matter of time until they figure it out and put it all together, regardless of whether or not they're staring at deficits. I mean, he suggested that they don't have a lot of experience playing from behind, which is true, but we all know that used to be Lamar's Achilles heel. That used to be the Ravens' Achilles heel, right? If they don't punch you in the mouth first, are they able to overcome that? They've proven they can. So that was interesting to hear Kyle open up with that.
First of all, the part that Kyle Hamilton said where he says to them, you know, what are you missing? He says literally nothing. That's correct in terms of the last 2 years. The Ravens had all the pieces. They had all of them. Now that doesn't mean, I don't think he's obviously not saying that they won't go out and get more, but it proves his point that when you're bringing back 80% of your starters are already under contract, and now you've got 11 draft picks, that all you're mostly going to do is supplement. So the Ravens should once again be in position. So he is correct. The problem is the very thing that he's correct in saying simultaneously gives you hope and takes away hope.
Yeah.
Because the hope is like, okay, well, the Ravens are going to be right back there. As long as Lamar Jackson's healthy, he's got the supporting cast. He'll be able to endure, one or two injuries at other positions as long as Lamar's healthy. Right? So, and then they should on paper only get better. So that gives you a lot of hope. They're going to be back. It's not like you're the Pittsburgh Steelers out there looking for a quarterback. You're not Joe Burrow being like, please sign my number 2 wide receiver who's been amazing. And we'll get to Joe Burrow and T. Higgins in a minute. You're not the Jets. You're not all these teams looking for major pieces. Yes, we need the game record. We know that. Going to have to figure out the left side of the offensive line. We know that. But with what they have on paper right now, they should 1,000% be back at the divisional round.
Which begs the question.
Which is what gives you hope. But then you're like, but dang, how many times have they gotten to the divisional round or the AFC Championship with a team that could win it? And they haven't. And that's the part where Ravens fans or Ravens podcasters like us or even Eric DaCosta has no control over. Because what Kyle Hamilton is saying is that it's what's in between our ears. The only people that can control that is them. And it has to be and each one has to do it. It can't be that one half Mark Andrews is great, but Lamar had a couple of fumbles, and then Lamar takes off and is amazing, and then Mark Andrews fails. Or that the defense starts off bad and then they find their footing. No, it's got to be all these individuals have to individually get what's right inside their head, but then as they all do it individually, it has to come together collectively. Yeah. And so that's why simultaneously it gives hope and takes away hope, because we got no control over that. They got to get it done inside.
In other words, if they have everything they need and there isn't expected to be significant change, there will be some change, but not significant, we don't think. Why will different results be yielded? Right. It's like that's the $1 million question. And you hope that the ball bounces in your direction. You hope that player execution will be more consistent if indeed you are back in that same situation next year, but no promises. Kyle Van Noy.
Yes, go ahead. You've got it.
Perfect. Kyle Van Noy joined the facility last week. We've already shared one snippet from this conversation, which really was awesome. And it since went viral. And it's Emmanuel Acho, friend of the show, asking KVN, hey, you showing up this summer? Like, dude, you're coming off a 12.5 sack season. You're a bargain right now to this team. You are under contract, but that's a career year for you. Like, would you potentially hold out? And KVN was like, listen, I'm a pro. Eric and I will have our conversations when business will be handled the way business needs to be handled, but I'm not going to be a distraction. I'm showing up, and everybody loved it. How could you not love that?
Yeah, they didn't like that Emmanuel was setting them up that way. And
they did not.
At the end, he knocked that out. He slapped that right out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Further ingratiating himself to this Baltimore fan base where he spent the last couple of years. But I would say he wasn't really pressed on that. That was a pretty easy answer for him. This was a true full court press. And James Jones wants to talk about some of these things that we've kind of been dissecting here, why they've fallen short in these do or die moments. And KVN answered it in one way, and then the follow-up, essentially the first way it was answered, James wasn't satisfied, so he needed to get a follow-up in there, and it made for a good back and forth between one former player and, of course, one current player in KVN.
Facility.
Yes, sir. I like it. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Facility. In the facility, we keep it a buck and some conversation.
I love it.
Hey, man, he coming. Be quiet real quick. You know what I mean? For real. I wanted y'all in this game.
I did too.
For real.
Yeah.
But it always seems in the biggest games, y'all don't play y'all best. You know what I'm saying? Last year, you got the Kansas City Chiefs at home, best defense in football. You got Lamar Jackson playing at an MVP level, and Patty come in there and beat y'all. Yeah. But y'all don't play y'all best. Yeah. Then you go on the road to Buffalo. You ain't turned the ball over multiple times in a football game, and y'all choose to do it in the AFC Championship. Don't play your best. What is it when them moments and them games is on the line to where we don't get the best Baltimore Ravens?
You know, sometimes I just look at the ball and it doesn't bounce your way. I look at the game, the AFC Championship against Buffalo and the Chiefs 2 weeks ago, right? And you saw the beginning of the game, Josh Allen should have threw 2 picks. Yeah. Unfortunately, against us, the ball bounced the other way into the guy's hands, and they made the plays. It's not making an excuse. It's just sometimes the ball. Like
we dropped to now, we can real now.
The facility.
All right, so start that over.
You're right.
Start that over. Hold on, Jay. Start the question again.
Start the question again. We in the facility. All right? So we're going to keep it a buck. All right? Last year, Patty comes. What is it? The bank?
Let's go to the bank.
To the bank.
Yeah. In Baltimore.
The best team in football is the Baltimore Ravens with the best defense. Y'all don't play y'all best. Patty beat y'all. Then you got another dominant football team going to Buffalo.
Right.
Biggest game of the year. Ain't turned the football over twice in the game all year. And you choose to do it that game.
Give them the
Why
mic now.
Don't the Baltimore Ravens play their best in the biggest games?
You know, just for my teammates, I think it just comes down to us. We got to take it on the chin. I got to take an L like a man on the chin.
There we
go.
There we go.
That's the execution.
And, you know, it is what it is. We lost. There's no excuses. You know, the ball didn't bounce our way. But
That's a fact. I will agree with that.
But at the end of the day, I'm one of the leaders. I take it on the chin, and that's just fuel, hopefully, for this year to get things right.
Held his feet to the fire, for sure. And I love how he still slipped in when he came back with his second answer. He's like, well, the ball didn't go our way. But like, again, when you're trying to like talk about psychology, and this is why I keep pounding away at this idea, Bobby, of like loser mentality and I don't want to win MVP and da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, or when you look at the ball not bouncing your way, like the ball doesn't bounce everybody's way all the time ever. And so if you play up to your abilities, like if the defense had balled out and the Ravens balled out for 4 quarters in all of these playoff losses, then I could be like, you know what, that one, the ball didn't bounce the Ravens' way. I could live with that. But you can only go to that if you know that you were playing up to your potential. And a lot of times when people talk about their greatest fears, some people say it's not living up to my potential. And I feel the same way. Like, get snakes, whatever, snakes or spiders or public speaking or whatever. We can overcome all of that. To me, and this is why yesterday when I asked people about yelling and people like, just be you, I'm like, well, what if being me right now gets in the way of being the me that I could become and I want to be? That's why I don't let go of this. That's why I don't let go that Mark Andrews didn't show up to the media after he dropped the catch. It's these little things that are up here. Don't tell me the ball didn't bounce your way. Don't tell me that. There's some truth to it, but don't lean into it. Don't lean into it. Lean into the fact that it's like, we just got to come and play up to our ability. And if you keep leaning into these other excuses, as true as they might be, you can't control that. So don't speak to that. Speak to the fact that it's like, we just have to lock in. It's on us. And it can't be that it's like, oh, now we're in the playoffs and then now we're different people. It can't happen anymore. It can't happen. And go into the facility and say that. We're not playing like ourselves. We're not living up to our potential, and that's on us. Don't talk about the ball not bouncing your way. Not when you left so much on the field.
It's making me think of what one of our subscribers just dropped in via Super Chat. 2 comments, one Super Chat and one comment that's asking me to go back to my interview with Josina Anderson on Radio Row. And he goes on to say, there's a way to tell who has the, quote, dog mentality when the pressure is on. And then he says, I don't think the Ravens do a good enough job evaluating. But I think the reason why I wanted to bring this up, Sarah, was, remember, you and I tried to kind of decipher Josina's comments that day. And I think my conclusion was that she was maybe questioning or pointing out pressure management. And that's an area that when you are evaluating talent, when you are sitting down with these prospects coming out of college, it can be really difficult to identify and try to foresee how a guy will handle pressure management. I mean, that's tough. Not everybody is coming out of these SEC schools where they had a chance to compete for the playoff title, for the college football championship title. A lot of these guys are coming from, smaller schools, for example, where, the stadiums are smaller. The magnitude of each game and each moment and each snap is probably, smaller than that of these other bigger schools. And so that's an area that you just don't know how pressure management will change moving forward. All you can do is hope that the more that you execute, the more that your confidence rises and the more ultimately you're able to manage everything that goes into these playoff games.
I love Josina and her talking about, like, she said, I feel like I can tell, because she was a Division I athlete herself. She's like, I feel like I can tell who has that dog mentality, who can rise to the occasion, who can play their best in the biggest moments. And you mentioned like not everybody's, in the SEC or whatever, but what about Zay Flowers? Okay, let's take Zay Flowers as an example. I feel like he has a dog mentality. He is one of the smallest dudes on the field, game in and game out. And I know that he had that punch out fumble in the AFC Championship game. I know that happened. But here's why I think he's a dog and can overcome it.
And an unsportsmanlike.
That's exactly why, though. I'm going to talk about the time before. I love the phrase from Mike Tomlin that says, "I rather coach players to woe than go."
That's an unreal quote. That's
Zay Flowers.
That's a sick quote,
Zay
actually.
Flowers. When you get up and flex on him, just don't look down on him. That's easy to coach. Look away from him and then flex.
Don't look down at him. Don't make eye contact.
Don't look down on him and go like this. All right? Do it up to the crowd. Do it to your teammates. I can coach that. But I can't coach somebody else to flex on him. I can't go up to these other guys and say, "Hey, show a little." Do you know what I mean? Like, I know Zay, and then Zay, it's back to the same thing. Zay, I know you were going for that touchdown. I know you wanted it, and you were showing that Lamar could go to you in that moment, and all you were trying to do was score. You were extending the score. Here, I can coach you to woe. When you're at the 1 yard line, do not extend that ball when we've got time. If the time is expired, then go ahead and extend. But we got time here. If we need to punch it in from the 1, we can do that, but don't extend. So I can coach him to woe. I know Zay has that dog in him. I know he does. I question it now, though, for Mark Andrews, which I hate to say because we know what he means to this team and we know what he means to the franchise. He's the franchise leading touchdown receiver. And so I get that it's hard, but I don't know that it's that hard. It's got to be that dog mentality when you go inside the playoffs. It has to be there. Don't tell me that the ball didn't bounce our way. Go be a dog and take over.
More super chats?
Yes.
Love a good tangent. Absolutely love a
Did
good
I
tangent.
yell?
No, not at all. And matter of fact, people were applauding you when you stood up. We were all fired up.
Okay.
Got to look at the full Valentine's Day outfit. Thank you so much. All right. We left off with Dre Dog. So Asmodeus says, bullies get scared when they're punched in the mouth. Louis just cannot help himself, can he?
What do you say? He said, couldn't help myself. You guys are too awesome. All hail #the vault. I'll start saving money tomorrow.
So it's funny, Louis, I thought that your message yesterday was that you wanted the Ravens to be mindful and save money in different areas, but you're talking about yourself now that you're dropping all these super chats in here, I guess. We appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for popping on the show. Kobe Pruitt says, if Mads is nearly leading the league in double teams, meaning Matabike, why are we still lacking a consistent pass rush? Are Owe and KVN not winning enough one-on-ones? If they could rush 4 and drop 7, we are in the Super Bowl.
Yes, if Mads is being double teamed, it's part of the reason why the Ravens finished second in the NFL in sacks. They were getting them. But it's, can you get them in these big moments and punish people? And so I partly think that Matabike had 13 sacks last year because Clowney might have been more of that, a little bit more game wrecker in him. You know what I mean? Owe and KVN, love KVN. I mean, he's finding the fountain of youth. Love that he's around. But would I call him like that game wrecker where people are like, uh-oh, game plan around him? They're not game planning around him. They're game planning around Matabike. And if you had a second guy that you also have to game plan for, then Matabike and more people can eat.
Clowney commanded a lot more attention than either one of those guys do.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I think that opened up Nnamdi for the career season that he had, which ultimately allowed him to get the bag last offseason. And, granted, when you look at the numbers, they don't wow you this past season. But, again, a lot of that had to do with his peers. And when they didn't necessarily let Jadeveon walk. They weren't going to pay him what Carolina gave him. Mm-hmm. Carolina gave him the bag. You wanted to go home, but ultimately the Ravens were never going to spend that kind of money on a player at this point in his career. We're getting a couple more super chats as well before we transition. Saad Blitz says, a lot of the names you mentioned Zadarius Smith, Matt Judon were drafted by Ozzie and not on the team anymore. Queen didn't develop till year 4. Year 4, he was a 2020 draft pick, first round. Year 4 seems a little late. I think he was coming on in.
He hit Pro Bowl level in year 4. Where he started all those years.
He was coming on though in 22, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and then 23.
I mean, he was on locks when Roquan came around for sure.
Yeah,
but it's not like. But I wouldn't have called him a bust before that.
Yeah, Richard.
I don't want Ravens to have bully mentality. I don't even want to read this. I can't even read that. I don't agree.
You got to read it though.
Ugh, Richard, I love you, but
read it.
I want an underdog mentality.
Wait, but look at the end of the super chat though. He gets back to.
We are 0-3 against the Chiefs and Bills. Also, passionate Sarah, 3 exclamation points. I don't like underdog mentality. I think it goes back to it's what we talked about in the first topic. You don't want expectations. And I think sustained success requires high expectations and not being afraid of them. I don't care. Underdog mentality is like nobody expects anything from me. And that's like a safe place to be. And so if nobody expects anything from me and I win, that's good. But if nobody expects anything from me and I lose, then nobody cares.
Look, playing devil's advocate here. Maybe he's going on his lifetime of fandom watching this team. They've had a lot of success as the underdog.
But
that's
they're not.
Devil's advocate.
You're not. And that's the problem is you want to be an underdog, but you're not. You might be an underdog to the Kansas City Chiefs, and maybe you're an underdog to the Eagles now, and you also lost to them. But you're not an underdog in the AFC North. You've won it 2 times in a row. Lamar Jackson isn't an underdog in the MVP race. He's won it twice and could have won it a third. You're not an underdog. You're part of the elite. You're not Kansas City Chiefs elite, and you didn't knock them off like the Eagles did, but the Baltimore Ravens are not underdogs, and they have to learn that. Quit pretending that you are. You're not underdogs. You're considered one of the top 3 to 5 teams.
Against
So
most
learn a non-underdog person like mentality. They have to transition.
Against most teams in the league throughout the Lamar era, correct. They have not been an underdog really at all over the last 7 seasons.
Right. And
But,
that's why
like
they're
you said-
using it against Lamar, these MVPs, because he's not an underdog. So rise up to the expectations. Name anybody besides Eagles and Chiefs. Maybe the Bills.
That they haven't been able to get past.
We're going to pick the Ravens over them.
Next year?
Yes. Going into
Actually,
next
it's
year.
funny. I just saw Rich Eisen's way too early power rankings. He's got Philadelphia, Baltimore, Kansas City. So
Say that again.
he's got like his way too early power rankings. He's got Philadelphia, Baltimore. I think he had Kansas City at 4, and there was another team at 3.
It'll be
So
a good segue into I've got coming up first things first, Super Bowl tiers. The Ravens are not underdogs. They have to learn to transition their mentality.
Richard, you inspired another conversation. Thank you.
Love you, Richard.
Or 2.
Okay, that'll take us to this. Okay, so Nick Wright put together his Super Bowl tiers for 2025. Way too early edition, right? Because we're like not even a week removed from the Super Bowl. And so got lots of guys on the teams at the bottom of the list that you'd expect, the Browns and Raiders and Giants of the world. You've got franchise QB questions, the Jags, the Colts, the Falcons, and you've got more than a glimmer of hope. Dolphins, Jets. Jets have more than a glimmer of hope. I don't know about that. Bears, high floor, low ceiling. You've got the Cowboys, Seahawks, Steelers. Stuck in neutral, definitely the Chargers. Boy, oh boy, have they been stuck in neutral. Broncos, Vikings, Bucks. Bounce back season. He's anticipating 49ers, Texans, and Green Bay. I could see that. Fork in the road. The Chargers and Bengals. Just fix the defense and you should be good. Lions and Washington. Okay. Then 2025 or bust. He's got the Bills and Ravens. And then I don't understand what this next tier is. Third, first, second, fourth, first, second. He's got Kansas City Chiefs. And then I got the screen grab too soon. He's actually got the Eagles above the Chiefs. So you just named somebody that had the Ravens number 2. Nick Wright, who never gives the Ravens respect or tries not to most of the time, has the Ravens in the top 4. Okay. They're not underdogs. They're not. Now, here was our guy, Brew. And shoot, I forgot to bring in his audio. Let me grab this. Brew reacted to this Super Bowl, way too early Super Bowl tier. And here's what he had to say. Oh, it's uploading. It doesn't go as fast as videos. Hold on. This is audio. Here we go.
I think the tiers were solid. And I get why you have the Chiefs second. That's fair. I mean, they were in the Super Bowl. But I would move, I think the Ravens, Bills, and Chiefs should all be on the same tier. Because I do think the AFC is wide open.
Love it.
And this is the time for the Ravens to fly. The Eagles just flew. It's time for the Ravens to fly. Look, Coach, we were talking about this, and the bully has been beaten. Like, and Greg Jennings said it yesterday, he used that term. I believe that the Chiefs' mystique that was hovering over the Ravens and the Bills and even the Bengals, to a lesser degree the Bengals, but still, I think it's gone. Like, I think those teams watched that game and were like, what? And feeling like they missed an opportunity. Because I think when they do play the Chiefs, they were pressing. They felt like, man, we can't make a mistake. Like, they have to be perfect, which you get tight. Mm-hmm. And I think all of that came into play when they played the Chiefs. I don't think that'll be the case going forward.
So that way too low audio, sorry about that, I should have bumped it up. Brew is saying that he thinks that the Bills, Ravens, and Kansas City Chiefs should all be on the same tier, and then the Eagles above them. Your thoughts?
Bills, Ravens, and KC all on the same tier. Philly above them, which is deserving. Philly is going to have to figure out life after Kellen Moore at offensive coordinator, which they've proven to do in the past when they lost both a couple years ago. Now, granted, it didn't work out well for them after they lost both their coordinators the year they went to the Super Bowl 3 years ago. But I think that's pretty fair. I do. I think the Ravens are going to continue to hover around that second tier, whether it be Lamar in the second tier below Mahomes or whether it be team-wide in that second tier that's got to find a way to get over the hump. You're not going to get to that top-level tier as a favorite so long as you can't get over the hump, and they have not yet proven they can do that in the Lamar era.
And Brew also in that soundbite gave me the word that I've been looking for. He said that the Chiefs have lost their mystique. Okay. Now here we go again. That's what the day. Remember, we did our takeaways from the Super Bowl on Monday, following the Super Bowl. My number one takeaway was that the Ravens, I hope, no longer see the Chiefs as like kryptonite. And again, Lamar already took back that phrase before week 1 when they played in 2024, but he did at one time say that. And he called them the kryptonite. And then every time the Ravens lose to the Chiefs or anybody else, like the Bills or any NFC team that's faced them in the Super Bowl, everybody comes back to, well, it's the Chiefs. They're the Michael Jordan. The Chiefs are doing to all these other NFL teams what Michael Jordan did to Karl Malone and Charles Barkley and Patrick Ewing and all the other NBA stars of the 90s. But now that the mystique is gone, that excuse isn't there. Because the Eagles did it. So no longer can you say, well, none of those guys got rings because it was the Michael Jordan of the NFL was there and knocked him out. That's why the Ravens were talking about mentality again, because that is what's holding them back in the postseason. That's what Kyle Van Noy said. That's what Kyle Hamilton said. It's what's in between the ears. And so the mystique has to be gone. It has to be gone. You can't see yourself as an underdog to them. What you want to envision, what you need to envision is hitting Patrick Mahomes the way the Eagles did. You need to go and dismantle them on offense with both a running game and a passing attack. The mystique has to be gone in order for you to mentally overcome that hurdle and beat them. So I like where Brew's going. It's Ravens time to fly. I hope he's right. And we really need to get him on the show.
Yeah. We got it. All right. Let's let's put our heads together on that one. Chris Broussard.
Yes.
That's our next guest. You got Acho for us this week. Let's track down Broussard and start to see how we can do that.
All right. What's next year? Matchmaker?
Let's do some matchmaking. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody.
We want to do a free agency. Hold on real quick. Let's just get this out of the way real quick. Nick Cordy, who does all the compensatory pick projections, he had been informed that he had Geno Stone's value too high, which changes his projections for the Ravens comp picks. And so he originally had Geno Stone becoming a 5th round comp pick for the Ravens, but he now changed it to a 6th round comp pick. So that means the Ravens will now get a 4th for losing Patrick Queen, a 5th for losing Clowney, and then 2 6ths with Stone and Zeitler. So 4th, 5th, and 2 6ths instead of a 4th, 2 5ths, and a 6th. So still
Gotcha.
11. They'll have 11 total, but 1 round lower for him. But now let's get to Valentine's Day free agency matchmaker, Bobby. So you are very open about your dating life and you meet a lot of girls on those apps. I'm going to sound like a super old lady. I never had to do that. Okay. Now this analogy may not fully, fit, because I guess my question to both you and I is, heading into free agency, if you're on a little dating app and doing matchmaker for the Ravens, your EDC, which free agents DMs are you going to slide into? Who do you got that you want to slide into his DMs with an offer to come to Baltimore of all the free agents that are expected to hit the market in March?
All right. Obviously, we know that there are specific needs at a few positions that we're going to start to dive into in the coming weeks. One that comes to mind, of course, is edge rusher, perhaps bolstering the defensive line, maybe some guard depth. I don't think you can ever have enough depth at corner. We know that Brandon Stevens is not expected to return after Eric DeCosta made comments at the end of season press conference that he will test the market, meaning they're not going to offer him. And so those are positions that come to mind. But as we also know, the wide receiver position is important as well, especially when you see the way that, without telling us, they told us within the last couple months that they felt like they could improve, which is why they tried to acquire and did acquire Deontay Johnson prior to that November deadline. So I'm going to focus on wide receiver. You made the suggestion of looking at the top 50 free agents. So I went and looked at not just the top 50 wide receivers that are hitting free agency next month, but the top 50 players. And so I went back and forth. I really did. I went back and forth between corner and wide receiver. And why I went wide receiver is because I think they're going to be looking for a Nelson Aguilar replacement. I don't believe Nelly will be back. He spent a couple of years in Baltimore, was reliable at times, but truly, obviously somebody that didn't exactly move the needle for them. And they're looking for some depth outside of Zay and Rashad. So as tempting as it was, when you look at some of the free agent corners that are going to be available, I decided to go wide receiver, and I decided to take a look at Giants wide receiver Darius Slayton. This is a player that I think would be a heck of a wide receiver 3. I think he'd be a good fit in Baltimore. He is 6'1". He's rangy. He is somebody that obviously could very well use a change of scenery. It's not exactly been easy for him to play in that organization in recent years. They've had all kinds of inconsistency and instability at the quarterback position. He's played for a bunch of different head coaches, different management, so on and so forth. He's a former 5th round pick. You look at the numbers over the last several years. He was drafted in 2019, so he's been around for a while. He's coming off a year where he had 573 receiving yards for 39 receptions. Prior to that, he had 770 through the air in 2023, had 724 in 2022. He's had several 700-yard plus receiving seasons, and I think he'd be a great fit in Baltimore. So is he somebody that's going to be challenging Bateman for number 2 reps? I don't believe so, but I think it would bring in another pass catcher to be at Lamar's disposal. It wouldn't break the bank. And that's somebody that I would try to matchmake and slide into his DMs on this Valentine's Day.
All right. All right. You're looking for a number 3 wide receiver that might be okay with that role at a decent cost. I hear you. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if I can make this any bigger. Yes, I can. Awesome. This is ESPN's. See if I can make it even bigger. ESPN's top 50 free agents. So I took a look at this. Boy, would T. Higgins be nice. That's not happening. Trey Smith, Ronnie. He's got DJ Reed there, Chris Godwin, all this. Bobby, if I'm going to spend big money on somebody, I want to spend money on somebody that I know and I can trust. So I'm going back to my guy, Ronnie Stanley. I've been saying nonstop since the season ended a few weeks, maybe a month ago now, that it's trenches, trenches, trenches. I want the Ravens to hit the opposing quarterback, and I want the Ravens to protect Lamar Jackson. And I have a very hard time seeing the Ravens finding a free agent that would be affordable and play at the level that Ronnie Stanley can. It's a possibility that Roger Rosengarten could go over to left tackle, which, could be okay. But then you're just looking for another right tackle. And so to me, it's like Ronnie's the best guy going out to free agency. You spend money in the trenches. Lamar Jackson is the most important asset that you have. You got to protect him. So that's where I would go. Now, to your point about wide receiver 3, I wasn't going to bring this up, but since you're talking about wide receiver 3, let me scroll down and tell you who I would slide into his DMs for business and business only. And it's also because I know him pretty well, as we've been competing against him. It would be Amari Cooper. I think Amari Cooper could obviously play as a number 2 wide receiver. I think that he would be a professional about being in that third role, wouldn't complain if he didn't get as many targets as he would like. His age entering into the 2025 season is 31, so he's coming on the back end. I think he knows what kind of organization the Ravens have. And so I feel like he would be a good fit for wide receiver 3 if they could get the money right. Not sure what they could do there, but seems like a solid target for Lamar that would be hopefully okay with the role given where he is in his career. And I know him, and I feel like I would feel comfortable spending money on him.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. And by the way, that Ronnie pick, to me, that was like, to me, when you look at what the Ravens' needs are and you look at this top 50 list, I think that's so obvious. Yeah. Like I'm with you there. I'm totally with you. I think Ronnie, while, hey, who knows what kind of money he's going to command when he does hit the open market, but this is a player who has successfully built himself back up to a Pro Bowl caliber talent after what I'm sure would have completely dismantled other guys given the severity and all the different follow-up procedures he had on that ankle. I mean, he's a success story. 6'6", 310, to have overcome what was an extremely damaging ligament-related type of injury. I don't think it's talked about enough how big of a deal that was, that he's come back and become the Ronnie Stanley, maybe not of 2019, but as we always said, if you can just get a consistent Ronnie Stanley back, that's going to pay dividends, and it did for them. It absolutely did. So I'm with you there. My sort of goal looking at it was, I know I got a lot of pushback given the live chat to my wide receiver. A lot of this exercise is trying to be realistic in the way that the Ravens have spent money in the past at that position. So I get it. You guys
wasn't your wish list.
There's nothing.
It was matchmaker.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like I'm I'm not saying that that's the sexy pick here of the top 50. I'm trying to make sure that I look at this objectively and realistically based on past team building moves that Ravens have made at that position. And that's who came to mind. So believe me, I wanted to go corner, Sarah. But then I said to myself, you know what? What's this TJ Tampa dude all about? Barely got to see him.
There's been a resurgence of love I've noticed on Twitter, Ravens Twitter. There's been a resurgence of love for TJ Tampa.
But here's the thing why I almost went corner, and I really wanted to. One, you know you're going to be losing Brandon Stevens. Two, you can never have enough corners. And three, as much as I have optimism about TJ Tampa as well, we just didn't see a whole lot from him. He had the double sports hernia surgery during training camp, which completely derailed the opening part of his rookie season. And then they went in and got Tre'Davious White at the deadline, and he never really found his footing. So you hope that a guy like that can develop. I know that they felt like they stole him in the 4th round last year out of Iowa State, and he dropped, whether that was related to measurements or character stuff or whatever it was.
I think it was Combine 40, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, and I was trying to remember what that was. And so you hope that a guy like that can make a big jump, but you just can't put all your marbles in the basket when you don't have that, when you have very little NFL tape out there the way that TJ does.
I think if the Ravens spend money on a veteran in the secondary, would they do it? Would they be more likely to do it at safety?
It's funny, when I was scrolling through the top 50, there were a couple safeties that stood out, and I was asking myself the exact same question. Would they rather go in that direction?
Yeah.
Much like they did in 2022 with Marcus, and retool the way they did last year in the draft at corner.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, there's a few safeties. I was looking at the top 20 safeties, top 30 actually. So Cameron Bynum in Minnesota. You had, let's see, who else did you have on this list? Another corner, by the way, was Asante Samuel Jr. in LA.
Are you back at ESPN's top 50?
I'm looking at the PFF top 50.
Oh, PFF. Okay.
I thought that was the list that you had up there, wasn't it?
No, it's ESPN.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
A top 15 corner they have is Rasul Douglas in Buffalo at corner. You got Charvarius Ward in San Francisco. I know I'm mentioning corners, but I'm just going in the who is the safety that was top 10? Let me see if I can find him. DJ Reed, corner for the Jets, was top 6. Maybe they didn't have a top 10 safety. Oh yeah, they did. Javon Holland in Miami was their top 3. Top 3 player available in free agency, according to PFF, is Javon Holland, safety for the Miami Dolphins. So there's plenty out there. It's just,
well, I'll say this. I guarantee this is not a big, not like sticking my neck out here, but I guarantee the Ravens will draft both a corner and a safety, maybe 2 corners. But if they do that at safety, it's got to be higher. I mean, they just drafted 2. Well, they got the 7th rounder in Sanusi Kane. Was he a 7th rounder?
Yeah.
And then free agent pickup out of Maryland. Why am I forgetting his name?
Bo Braid.
So if you're going to get a safety, you can't wait till 7th rounder or unrestricted, or undrafted safeties again. So it'll be, and you can get a quality safety in, the second day for sure.
Yep.
So, but they already have 2 back end safeties to develop that also help on special teams. So it's going to need to be a higher pick.
Quick hits.
Well, let's do a couple super chats. Quick hits. Yeah.
Yep.
So we can get people's thoughts on what we just talked about.
Absolutely. We left off with Richard. So Kobe gets us back going. Is the front office ruthless enough? I feel like elite teams would try to access cap savings by trading Andrews. Why not get a day 2 pick from the Chargers and reallocate resources to the offensive line and defensive line and safety?
I honestly think that if the Ravens felt like moving on from Mark Andrews was in their best interest, I think they would do it. I don't think they're going to, if they hold on to Mark Andrews, it's because they believe he's got production, that he thinks that he'll be still a dog, he'll be a security blanket for Lamar Jackson. If Lamar Jackson wants him and Isaiah Likely there. But if they felt like it was bad for business, I think that they would trade him. But I don't know. I don't know that they're I don't know that they've lost faith in Mark Andrews in big moments like I have. If they've lost faith in him in big moments, then I can see them moving on. I just don't know that they've lost that faith.
Ask Deontay if you think the Ravens front office is ruthless.
Yeah.
Or just smart and savvy. How about that?
Yeah. That one's a bit different because they don't have the history, obviously, in drafting him and all that.
Oh, Richard, can we get Hollywood back? Seeing a lot of this as well. Marquise Brown, who spent the season with Kansas City, didn't do very much in the Super Bowl. He will be a free agent. They already have Zay. Richard, why would you want him back?
And I just saw a sound bite from him heading into the Super Bowl talking about how much he loves Lamar and how he's like not a friend, he's a brother, which I 1000% agree. But he asked for a trade. Like when we talk about ruthless front offices, when you ask to leave, it's rare that you're going to come back. It's rare when you ask to be traded like that.
Yeah. There was one catch of his in the Super Bowl that brought me back to his years in Baltimore. And hey, he was a Pro Bowl caliber receiver. His last season, he went for over 1,000 yards. Like he had his moments. There's no question. And he can take the top off of a defense. And he did at times with Lamar, especially when he got the freaking screws that were in his foot his first year or two in Baltimore coming out of Oklahoma. But if there was one thing about Marquise, and this is where Zay differs, Zay will run. He will willingly run through you. He can run around you. He can run by you. Marquise, sure, he can run by you, but he had not shown and still does not show a willingness to run through you. And one of his catches in that Super Bowl, you got it and ran right out of bounds. And it brought me back to just kind of like that's the key difference between the two players. You know, they're built differently. Measurements wise, they may not be that different. Zay has a certain level of tenacity, a certain level of toughness that I don't believe Marquise can hold a candle to. Kobe.
Hi, how do I, is it D'Alessio? Is that how it's pronounced?
D'Alessio. Donald D'Alessio, the new safeties coach in Baltimore.
So Kobe's saying, so they hired D'Alessio. Does that mean they'll sign Justin Reed? That's a fair question. So let me see here. How did Justin Reed? So he started 16 games, played in 16 games, 2 interceptions, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I see the connection for sure.
The Kansas City pipeline. Right? Hard to say anything more than that, right? You got the Kansas City pipeline. You're bringing in D'Alessio. He's a young 33-year-old rising coach, the way that we described yesterday. Maybe we'll sink our teeth into it more as free agency gets closer and closer. And that brings us to some closing quick hits. We appreciate you guys for being with us today. Over 2,500 of you concurrently watching right now. Please like the video if you haven't already done so. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when we're dropping our daily live content. And if you could like the video, subscribe, do all those good things. So the Jets have moved on now from Aaron Rodgers. He will be looking for his next team after 2 seasons in New York. And you pulled this in. So the Jets tweeted that they are moving in a different direction. That's the way that they described this decision. Well, Kyle Van Noy, who's become a big part of our show today, tweeted out, so nobody can say he got cut or released now, huh? Play long enough, you eventually going to get a scare. Crazy they won't say it like that, though. Interesting. The old school approach from KVN, who's been around the block, Sarah.
He is old school. I'm kind of the same way. It always it happens even more with coaches, right? Like we've mutually agreed to part ways. Like I highly doubt that. People are
Greg Roman
mutually agreeing to part ways.
Sarah?
What's that?
You think Greg Roman and the Ravens mutually agreed the way they said that was a couple years ago?
Right, where Greg Roman didn't have, a job for how long? At least a year, maybe more, until Jim Harbaugh came back into the NFL. Like it's just like left and right, just two sides, several coaches and franchises just woke up and mutually agreed to part ways. Like we're just gonna move forward from Aaron Rodgers. No, you have
Kyle.
to say he got cut. I agree with Kyle.
I love Kyle, man. He's so straight to the point. As he gets older and older and has been around the league for as long as he has, his what do you call it? I guess his what's the right word? His filter is becoming more and more filterless, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and here's my thing is like, who wants to say yes to this? Because Get Up had this morning. What Aaron Rodgers signing cost the Jets?
Yeah.
$75 million, 2 second-round picks. Then because of the receivers he basically demanded and they acquiesced, $36.6 million to Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, and Devontae Adams, and also a 3rd-round pick to Las Vegas. And now it's going to be $49 million in dead money if he gets released before June 1st. I mean, they're probably going to do a post one, so they'll probably spread that out. But they got to spread out $49 million in dead money over 2 years. And plus, they're just saying this in money-wise, but think of all the people who lost their jobs. Although I'll tell you what, Stephen A. Smith on First Take sure was pushing Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers.
He was. He's going to end up somewhere. I don't think he's giving it up. I don't think he's walking out like that. But the problem is, I don't know if you're going to find a more talented roster anywhere else in the league than what he had in New York. And they completely underperformed, obviously. But the amount of dysfunction that they had there, I think, was too hard to overcome, even with all that talent. But you're not going to Vegas and getting similar talent roster-wise. Pittsburgh also doesn't have the amount of talent, but at least it has the continuity. It has the framework organizationally wise where you can kind of plug and play at quarterback. So honestly, I'd be most intrigued from if I'm Aaron. Yeah, why wouldn't I go to a place where with the longest tenured head coach with a perennial defensive player of the year candidate on that line in TJ Watt, with a dog at wide receiver in George Pickens, even though he's a headache. I believe Najee Harris is going to hit free agency and they'll probably let him walk. So I don't know what they're going to do at back, and maybe TJ Warren will be there, but they're going to have to figure out how they're retooling at that position. But that to me would be the most intriguing if I'm Aaron.
For sure. Meanwhile, the question was posed on First Things First. Will Burrow be in trouble if T. Higgins leaves? T. Higgins was recently asked about whether or not he'll return, and here was his answer in the locker room.
Build something here in Cincy, but, it's not in my hands right now, so I got to do what I need to do, and if that's go to another team, and that's what happens. So, I love it here. I love the city. I love the fans. I love the coaching staff, everything in the building. But hey, it's not in my control.
He knows what he's worth.
The Burrow's record over the last 2 seasons with Higgins is 12-7. Without Higgins, it's 2-6. Question to you then, Bobby. If he does leave, which it sounds like he might, because I just don't know that the Bengals are gonna. They rarely spend all their cap money. Do you think Burrow would be in trouble if T. Higgins leaves?
Look, I think he's got a fair amount of trouble as it is coming off last year with that defense and the fact that he was a legitimate candidate for MVP in a lot of people's minds and got votes, by the way, while not making the playoffs. That to me sounds like trouble. And then you take away a T. Higgins. Look, as long as Jamar Chase is in Cincinnati, they're going to have a high-flying offense, and I'm sure they'll retool at wide receiver. And you got a Crafty and then Yoshi Voss, right? He'll still be there. They got Gesicki at tight end. Clearly, they're going to have to do some work though at that position. Jermaine Burton, I don't believe, has panned out. One of their recent draft picks for them. So, do I think that he is in trouble without T? I think it's more about. They're just in trouble organizationally right now after what they put forth last year. And given the historic year that 2 of their players had offensively, like literally historic numbers were put forth by Joe and Jamar, and they didn't make the postseason.
So Cameron in the chat is saying to find trouble. I hear what you're saying. Like organizationally, they're already behind the ball because of that defense, right? However, everybody keeps talking about how good Burrow is, right? And so people were saying that he should be considered for MVP. And the reason why he wasn't is because of the record, which in large part has to do with the defense not being able to stop anything. I mean, nothing. So to me, when it asks, is Burrow in trouble, not necessarily the organization, I'll just say this. If he is in trouble, if he drops off, then he's been overrated. He's what we've all been saying, that he's got these amazing wide receivers, and therefore that helps him look better. But if he loses Higgins and still has Chase and how do you say it? Yosivas? Yosivas. If he still has them, if Burrow is the quarterback that the national media keeps saying that he is, then he should not be in trouble. You should be able to plug in the next guy, and then therefore the Bengals shouldn't have to re-sign him because you still have you already have Chase. You've got other guys. So he better not be in trouble, or else, it would be like exposing him as not being as great of a quarterback without having the best wide receiver core in the NFL.
My long story short on this answer is that to me, there's bigger trouble to be had that they've already had aside from losing T.
Meanwhile, we'll just talk about this for a second, but on the New Heights podcast, Travis Kelce, I didn't watch the whole show, but when I listened to national show setting it up, it sounded like he kind of brought up retirement, it's not like the media are like, oh, he should retire. Nobody's out there saying, oh, he's lost it, he should retire. But he talked about it on the New Heights podcast and wasn't definitive one way or another.
Time to figure it out. And I think I owe it to my teammates that if I do come back, that it's going to be something that it's a wholehearted decision. I'm not half-assing it, and I'm fully here for them. And I think I could play. It's just whether or not I'm motivated or it's the best decision for me.
Ooh, so it does take a lot of motivation to play this game. Let's be real. It's a lot of sacrifice. You got to have it. You have to be fully committed, mind, heart, soul, body, all of it. So the fact that if I'm Kansas City, it's like, you take your time. You're a future Hall of Famer. You've done a lot for us. But the way he's hurting after that, Bobby, it's so jarring to see the Kansas City Chiefs like this. Like the day after the game, we put up some screen grabs of Patrick Mahomes' kind of body language and his facial expressions. And now it's like interesting to see these guys in this mode. And now here he is on the show, and he's just like, the tone is just like sad and tired and unsure. Whereas last year he's like, oh yeah, we're coming back and we're doing this thing, three-peat, I got no question in my mind. So whether he comes back or not, I don't know. But the way that he seemed right there, it's like he's got a big gap of like where he's at in the motivation and commitment that will be needed to come back and do what the Kansas City Chiefs have to do. Because the only reason why he would want to come back is to win a Super Bowl. Like, you're not going to come back after you've already won a couple rings, right? And so he has to ask himself, do I have the commitment and do we have the team? Because that offense struggled for most of the year, even though they were able to bring, he was a big part of that. He was a big part of being able to help them be 16-1, because in the end, they just always figured out a way. And he's a guy that plays in big moments. So as of today, sure didn't look like a guy that's going to come back.
Tough when the reality of hosting a weekly show falls on day 3 post Super Bowl loss.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're seeing a guy that's clearly in the grieving process still and is in front of a camera 3 days later.
Right.
So, I'm kind of like, yeah, clearly there's a mulling happening, right? This is all under consideration, which is pretty obvious, but I'm kind of like more of the belief, let's give this guy some time here to get over this loss. Maybe you never get over the loss. I mean, some have shared that you never truly get over a Super Bowl loss, but when you're in front of a camera 3 days removed from that kind of loss, I'm willing to wait and see and see if cooler heads prevail. Praably.
And then final quick hit, just Ravens Twitter account went a little too far in praising their offensive line, and so got a little pushback, which was just all in fun. But they tweeted, breaking down one of the best offensive lines in the league. I was like, are you guys breaking down the Bills offensive line? What's going on here? So our girl Rita over at 1057 The Fan quote retweeted it with a bunch of question marks. And then Coach Evans says, them folks really said one of the best offensive lines. Sir, we have eyes and they work.
Coach.
For sure, the offensive line got better, but let's not get carried away. One of the best offensive lines in the league. I don't know about that.
Coach Evans keeping it a buck.
There we go.
Let him know. Patrons, Steven, Fear the Turtle, Jason Zarotniak, thank you guys for believing in what we're building, being key parts of our Vault Patreon community. We appreciate the support that you guys give us on a monthly basis, and thank you so much for believing in what we're building. So if you guys are interested in doing the same for as little as $1.99 on a monthly basis, you too can join the Vault Patreon community this offseason by clicking on the link that we have as a pinned comment in the live chat. It's also in the show notes, or you can just visit it yourself, the site, patreon.com/RavensVault podcast. I believe we have at least one other super chat as well on our way out. And I have to tell you, as I promised yesterday, what I'm doing tonight to celebrate Valentine's Day. Mr. Solo Dolo says, looks like he's going to give me some plans here. Hey, Bobby, here's a little tease of what could be, but happy Valentine's Day, man. Let me take you out to dinner and make you breakfast tomorrow. Where are we going? Where are we going, Solo Dolo? Hit me with the itinerary in my DMs and I'll consider it, because I do have plans tonight and we also got to go because we've been going 90 minutes. But I'll say this. This will be a first for me tonight, Sarah. I was invited to a new couples dinner, meaning they are a new couple. She just moved to friends of mine, I should say. She moved up from Florida to Canton to live with him. They're great people. And they invited me to a steak dinner at their place, AKA I will be third wheeling their dinner on Valentine's night. And I'm showing up like this.
There we go.
I'm showing up like this.
I love that you have lots of invitations, Bobby. Like, there's so many things that you could go and do. You're getting invitations from our audience. You're getting invitations from, friends that are single, friends that are already together and saying, hey, come three, will it? Like, everybody wants you around, even on Valentine's Day. I think that's quite a compliment.
Yeah, it is cool. Richard wants me to go down to DC, of course, for the YSA event tomorrow night, which is still up for grabs. So we'll see. And that is what I have going on. I'm sure the live chat is perfectly normal right now, reacting to my plans. And I want to make sure to get this comment up here as well, because I loved it. Lewis says, you guys are the best, delivering mail in Wrightsville, PA, and the only podcast I listen to ever.
Love it. Love it.
Love it, Lewis.
Bobby, I also want to say this. I saw some people note, which accurately, that you share more about your personal life than I do. And then
Really?
they said, yeah. Well,
Really?
Is that really? Is that even a contest? I give tidbits here and there, but no way. I don't know that anybody shares. I dare you to find somebody in the media that shares as much personally as Bobby does. This is one confident, transparent man. I will tell you that. But then they noted how excited I get about it. Let me just say this. I get to hear about Bobby's personal life either on air or off air. I promise you, I get more details off air. But am I here for it when you want to voluntarily put it up and I play along with it? Absolutely. I think you're great for it. But I own the fact that you for sure are more open about your personal life than I am. And I don't know that that's going to change anytime soon.
Totally. That's always been the case. I think that's what makes this so fun. You went from like jaw dropped, the fact that I'm doing this, to like being super receptive to it, which is fun. A lot of fun for our back end content that we always try to save. By the way, we always try to save some time for this on the back end, but not everybody is being supportive of this decision of mine tonight. Tila says that it sounds pitiful.
Oh,
I think if you make it that way, it's a mindset thing, right? If I go in, discouraged by the fact that I've told you guys time and time again that I'm not very confident in the Baltimore dating scene, and I'm thinking about that all day, and I'm thinking about all the Instagram posts that I'm seeing of couples, and I'm getting all like, down in the dumps about it, then I can see why it would be pitiful. But I'm going in with two good friends. Maybe we go out after to have a drink or something and meet people. I'll probably put up a funny Instagram reel about it to get the people going online. Like, I'm just going to make the best of it. And I don't have any other plans, so why not? Now, I will be going today. It's going to be an interesting Valentine's Day. I'm actually going to a funeral today for my former professor that I put in the quick hits earlier this week, Dr. Tootin, who used to Tim Tootin, who passed away last week, who used to be at WBAL as a really popular reporter here in town. So it's going to be an interesting day. I'm going to go from our post-show meeting to the funeral to picking up some wine for tonight to going to this third wheel date, and then who knows where the night takes us after. And then maybe 24 hours after that, I'm going to be with Richard, wingmanning him at a YSA event in DC. So it's going to be quite the day.
I love all that. And in the spirit of sharing, okay, I'll go ahead and give my Valentine's Day plans. Okay. So first of all, it kind of started last night. I saw it just randomly in my Instagram. The algorithm sent me this idea where a girl had put together a bunch of like notes of where to find things in his car. Like she left some Valentines in there. Now I didn't go that deep where I had them like hidden everywhere, but I went out and bought several things to put in my husband's car when he got in it this morning. He's always out of here at about 5 a.m. And I told my girls, and I was like, you guys cannot tell Dad. And they're like, well, what is it? They loved it. So we were all waiting for him to go to bed so we could get, in his car because who knows if he was going to go out, and do a last minute workout or whatever. We had to wait till he was in bed to get into his car. So my girls are like just waiting. They just keep asking him, Dad, when are you going to go to bed? Dad, when are you going to go to bed? And finally he goes to bed and we go and get the stuff out. And I was like, shoot, his keys are in the dresser drawers right next to where he's like his head and the keys jingle, So my daughters are like, don't worry, Mom, we got it. He won't suspect a thing. So they go in there to say like good night. And so while London's distracting him to having a little chat, Ella gets into the drawer, pulls it out, and they were like, he didn't suspect a thing. So we went out and put all the stuff in there so that when he went out first thing at 5 a.m., he'd have it. And I snuck the keys back in after I made sure he was asleep. I was like, I don't hear snoring yet. I got to wait till I hear snoring. Yeah. Put it back in. And so this morning he texted all three of us because I think it dawned on him that they were in on it too by asking him about going to bed or whatever. So he texted all three of us, thank you for the Valentine. So we got friends coming in from Baltimore later tonight. Hopefully we'll all go out on a big, huge double date, triple date. They're bringing their kids. So Valentine's Day is off to a good start.
I love it. I love how you have your little secret elves helping out after hours too.
Yeah.
Knowing them, they were all in. Right? All in on trying to make the surprise a thing and just the fact that it was for their father. I know they love them. So.
Yeah, it was cute.
Well, that brings us to an end. First off-season week in the books. So we appreciate you guys so much for all the support. Appreciate Emmanuel Acho for making it certainly a great start to our off-season this week. That video continues to be consumed at a very vicious rate, which we love. So thank you for that. And if you guys haven't already checked it out, you can go do so in the best of archives section here on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so. We're coming up on 23,000 subscriptions. Like this video on your way out. Subscribe. I know I've already mentioned that a million times, but hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when we're dropping our daily live content, and be on the lookout for hopefully a full review of weekend festivities coming up on Monday on the back end of that show, which starts at 12 noon Eastern. So hope you have an awesome time with you and your company partner. And thanks to, I want to make sure we get this in too before we leave. I should have mentioned this off the top. But this month's small business Patreon title sponsor who supported us for this live stream is our guy, Sharu Hashmi. So Sharu, shout out to you, brother. Hope you have an awesome Valentine's Day. And thanks to all of you for dropping by on this Friday. We'll catch up with you on Monday at 12 noon Eastern, if not before. And as always, thanks for spending some time with us here inside the vault. Happy Valentine's Day to you and yours. We'll catch up with you soon.